All right, welcome everybody. This is CyberBulls episode 40. Appreciate you guys joining us. It's going to be a fun episode. This time, we're going to start focusing on the positives. We're going to look at the future, the Tesla catalyst. I think if the macro stays where it is at now, there's a lot of possibility that these catalysts will actually be catalysts and move the stock forward. So thank you everybody. Welcome. The gang's all here. Christian's not with us today. He is quite busy, but we have Sat as our guest bull joining us. I've interviewed Sat recently, so you want to check out and learn more about him, go check out those videos. But Sat, thank you so much. Sat is a long-term investor in Tesla. He's attended every single shareholder meeting that Tesla's ever had, except maybe this one, right, Sat? So if somebody has a plus one, please give it to Sat. Welcome, Sat. You want to introduce yourself?
Thank you for having me. I've been in financial consulting and investing on my own for a very long time, and been to every single shareholder meeting until they made it to a lottery. So I'm kind of sad. I'm going to miss it, but hopefully, I don't know, something will happen in the future.
You're not going to miss it, Sat. You're not going to miss it. Somebody's going to give us a plus one for you to go. Alexander, you're going to be there, right? Jeff, are you going? And Xander, you said you're going too, right?
I want to go.
I actually met Seth in March, right? When I was in,
Oh, yes.
I didn't have an invite, and he had an invite. So this time it's going to be the other way around. Are you coming to Austin anyway, or are you just not coming?
Right now, I'm not coming as of now.
Yeah, I'm going to Austin, but I don't have an invite. So at least maybe hang out with some people.
You know, there are actually two events at the moment planned. One on the Monday evening on a rooftop terrace. Tuesday in a bar. They start at 2 o'clock. They start at 2 o'clock. The live stream for those that can't go inside, and then those that come
Awesome.
back from the
Yeah.
factory late afternoon will go.
Okay. Well, we're going to have our representatives there. There's Alexandra, quite a number of our friends will be there. We're going to be reporting on this. And so next week, CyberBulls, Alexandra will be physically there. So we're going to be having her to report for us. Let's get started with some of the big news that happened yesterday. Lucid had their earnings report, and it was bad, right? Not very good at all. And so you can see here, this is Tesla Boomer Papa, which is the husband of Alexandra.
Yeah, he was
And
outspoken yesterday. He actually went even on one of Omar's spaces to contribute, which
Wow.
which was a first for him. And he recalled lots of Lucid's history. He's very much focused on watching the competition, and yeah, the results were bad. They still have cash up till I think the third quarter of next year, but they're burning cash fast. I mean, they're losing so much money on each and every car, always talking only about the future. And Michelle was very upset that the press is just giving them so much slack, right? I mean, they asked one or two bit harder questions, but for all the rest, they buy into the tomorrow will be better scenario. I actually really hope EVs make it, including Lucid, but Lucid has chosen a very, very difficult niche where they will have high-end competitors. They made the wrong decision with the too big battery pack. They don't have the supercharging. I mean, if you have a car at $150,000, do you want to go to the Walmart to sit there for hours to get your Lucid charge? I mean, there's so many things that didn't work, and maybe as Europeans we're less impressed with Rawlinson's English accent than some of the American journalists seem to be, but I mean, not impressed at all. Yeah, not impressed at all. And still wishing them the best because, like I said, any EV is better than any ICE car out there, but they have a steep hill in front of them.
Lucid reported that first quarter earnings report compared to their expected, and their revenue was 43% lower than what was expected. Their number of cars that they built was 34% lower. They only sold 1,406, which is 28% lower. Everything substantially lower. Sawyer was saying that their earnings per share was, also they're already losing money. Now they're losing even more money. They only have 3.4 billion cash on hand. And given their run rate, they only have money left for less than a year, basically 1 year. And they've adjusted their guidance. Instead of saying 10 to 14,000 of production, they're now at 10,000. So
Sorry, they're burning more than $3 billion a year.
A year, yeah. That takes
Wow.
about a year. Yeah, but I mean, I think I did it per car. So they're selling the car 150,000 and they are losing 500,000 on each car.
Wow.
I just wanted to highlight the nicknaming game at the end of that tweet. I think is probably some of the finest on Twitter.
Oh, I missed it. What did it say? What did it say?
This is Tesla Boomer Papa. And he said, when LeBeau asked Fraudlinson about reservations, he said, we don't tell anymore.
He's very good at that.
It's a good summary. It's a good summary.
Yeah, yeah.
Very good.
Jeff, did you have any comments about what you thought about Lucid?
No, I mean I think they moved their runway. Originally their runway was to Q1 of next year. I think they moved it out to Q2. It's basically middle of the year, and they're in this position right now where it's almost like the more they ship, they may accelerate losses in some situations. So it's going to be interesting to see. We listened to the earnings call, and they were blaming macroeconomic conditions, blaming supply, even in disruptions in supply. But it looks like there's a fair amount of vehicle inventory that they're building up as well. And they kept going back to the fact that the starting model is at $87,000, but if you go to the website, they're not building that model. So this is the case if they've kind of got to start high, which is $150,000 to $170,000 car, and then work down in configurations, which is what they're doing right now. But I mean, in terms of the value and what you're getting, I mean, I think long term for them, they have some interesting technology in terms of powertrain, battery management. There may be things there that could be of value to other companies, but it's going to be very difficult. And then they were kind of announcing like where they're at with the Saudi Arabia factory as well and getting that underway, and it just seems so strange that they're in this accelerated loss mode, and they're talking right now about a second factory. So it'll be interesting to see.
Thank you. And Sat, what was your comments on this?
Several things. One, I was reading an article on the Lucid earnings from Yahoo Finance and by PR Newswire, and the CTO is saying they're going to reveal the SUV later this year. I really think they need to focus on one car, make that successful, and sell that. Like, I don't know why there's a focus on doing the next thing when you haven't finished the first thing. And that's one thing about like focus that Tesla has always had. They had focus and they streamline things. So you're not going to have the situation where you money on the whole platform and you don't have it straightened out. Your cogs are all these issues, economic stuff and whatnot. And you can go on to the next thing, which takes an even greater capital expenditure. That makes no sense to me. So from a management perspective, why are they focusing on the next thing when they haven't? Like they're literally on a ship that's going down in flames. So sense that part. So the 3 billion burn rate also, which is interesting, is 2013. I kind of alluded in our interview with Herbert, is that Tesla was valued around 4 billion at around 2013. So you're literally burning the cash of the entire market cap of Tesla around of what Lucid was projected to do. They didn't meet it, but Tesla was selling 22,000, 23,000 cars in that year. They went from 2012 to 2013 minus 394,000 for their net income to minus 74 million. So you see the progression in their profit by when they ramped up, their losses decreased. So you see the projection that's going to go up and they're profitable as a platform. You don't see that with what's happening with Rivian or Lucid. So I'm really concerned. Like, I want them to succeed, but Lucid is much more difficult because you have a vehicle that's twice the price of a Model S, and it's not significantly better because this is the other point that I want to come back to, even with Rivian and Lucid, is that you can make a car with all the specs on it as long as the price is high. Like Elon mentioned that in 2013, 2014 timeframe. He said the car market is not deficient of a luxury car that's super expensive, and it's not deficient of a sports car that looks really great. Fisker Karma was also a competitor at that time, and they both failed for those reasons because they're not focusing on the right thing. They're competing against something completely different when you're going by design or you're going by just the luxury of it. I don't think Lucid beats, because I've seen the gallery pop up and I saw the exterior, some of the interior. I don't think it beats Mercedes or Porsche. They have those if I'm gonna go for the interior luxury. So you're competing against something completely different, and this is not where you compete with. That's why when Model S came out, it was Spartan, it was minimalist, and people complained. It didn't even have cup holders, didn't have a center console because they had to be streamlined and focused on what they do best, which was a new drivetrain that it was the OTA for the software. So the focus is completely technology related and something completely different. So they have to be better at something that's significantly better that the other competitors don't have for you to switch over the brand. I don't have a reason to switch over from Lucid from even a ICE car at this point because it's so expensive. So when they put everything into it and they make the cost that high, great. And the funny thing is, people don't. Do you guys know that Dyson actually tried to make a TV?
Dyson.
Yeah, Dyson tried to make. Yeah, he spent $600 million, and he's like, I want everything. I want 600 miles. I want it to go, farther, even with the car with all the trunk and everything, trunk space thing, all the specs and all the bling bling, everything. He spent 600 million trying to make that car, and it came out to be like somewhere below 200,000 per car. So I can't make a car that way. You're not going to sell enough to recoup that either. So he gave up. So he threw away $600 million to have one prototype. So you can have all the specs all you want, but the car is going to be so expensive, right? Which ones are the best one? And when you have a visionary like Elon, he's like, no, we're going to do these things. We're going to focus on those things. And someone's going to object, oh, we should have that. We should have that. We should have that. That's what happened with Rivian. Amazing car. They need to get their cogs in check. But when I was reviewing some of the YouTube review people, and you saw the interior, they have too many things. I've done product design classes, transportation design classes. You have to focus on certain things. They focus on all the materials there. It's amazing. If I look at it as a piece of art, amazing, but it's not going to help your cost.
Yeah, and I want to add one point to Lucid. Yesterday, I had a couple of people reaching out to me saying they're investors in Lucid, or they're now going to invest in Lucid at $7, whatever it was yesterday. I think it's up to $7.18 now. And when I asked them why, they would say, well, the Saudis are gonna be there and whatever. I think when the Saudis invested in Lucid, it was obviously in the hope to have a Tesla competitor, also to have a compliance car, right? I mean, they are seen as the petrol mafia and want to make sure that they're greenwashing their image. That didn't work, right? Nobody is now suddenly saying, oh, the Saudis, look how wonderful they are, they're investing in EVs. They're investing in a poorly run, and I'm sorry to say so, poorly run EV maker. And the other thing that happened in the meantime is that the Saudis, in the end, were the ones kicking the stone down the road with Credit Suisse. Credit Suisse would still be there if the Saudis yet again would have helped them and injected more capital into it. And they said in the end, that's it, that we're not doing it. The Saudis had much more economic reasons to have a Swiss bank and put their money there and have the financial benefits of being a large investor into a Swiss bank, in one of the biggest Swiss banks, than they ever had in investing into Lucid. I mean, like I said, Lucid was probably a prestige investment, and it was what it was. Remember all the SPAC and how poorly that was run. But I mean, even apart from all that, when this is going to come down in pouring more money into it, much more money into it, they may just say, this is it, now we've had it. And that will be the last straw. Because, I mean, it's all fine thinking you have underlying somebody who is there. The reverse of that is, if that person disappears, there's nobody anymore, right? And so the $7 secure feeling that you may have, I would question that very much. If that's your only investment hypothesis, please think again.
I have a question on that. So their runway is less than
A year.
less or about a year. They're going to have to go to the capital markets, or are the Saudis going to inject more capital? How do you?
That's a question. They currently have 3.4 billion and about a 700 million credit line. I mean, credit lines is good, right? You can have that secured, but if really it gets dirty, I doubt those banks will leave those credit lines there. I mean, they're always predetermined and look good on paper and all the rest, but if really it gets bad, what does the bank want? a law case for having ruptured the credit line, or put the 700 million out there. So those 700 million I'm not taking into account, but the two together should get them into the third quarter of next year. So a little bit more than a year. Yes, they will need to raise more money. So they have three options for that. Either get more credit lines, I doubt that very much, go back to the Saudis and say we need more money. Well, I think we'll see whether that is an option, because, you know, they want to actually build a factory in Saudi Arabia. If that materializes, which is a stupid idea. And logistic-wise, this is the most stupid idea, but it could be part of that prestige project, right? So if that is happening, they're probably very much secured for a couple more years by the Saudis. The Saudis won't pour money into a factory if they want to withdraw them later. Or the third point is go back to the stock market and go for a capital raise, and then those investors that would hope the $7 becomes I don't know what would actually pay it by the dilution of the shares.
But I also feel like their burn rate has to become better. I think they have to show progress before you have any kind of losing money, because this looks like they're burning 800 million per quarter. Then the next quarter they should burn like 700 or 600 or 500 million. Like, there has to be progression, because you can't calculate in terms of like just because they're negative. But there has to be progression and evidence that they're improving. If their COGS are still the same, like, you can't be ramping up the vehicle for losing the same amount of money. That's the part that I can't understand.
Yeah.
Well, how could you have such a negative when you're ramping up?
Exactly, and it doesn't
it
gets worse all the time. And so they're building a second factory in the US, and they're having this big Saudi Arabia factory project, and it's just, you just wonder, right? I mean, always forward, always forward. You know, we're used to some of that by Elon, right? He always goes ahead, but at least, as you said very correctly, he always finishes off the prior tranche, right? Making sure that part is secure and can grow when he's going for the next venture. And with Rivian, I just don't see it. And I also think there is so many bad feelings between Rawlinson and some of the Lucid crew against Tesla. It's such a shame. You know, they should all work together and make it happen. And I don't see any cooperation on that level. And that was actually another question I had a lot yesterday on Twitter. Do we all think that Apple is going to buy them or whatever? Why would they? I mean, there are big players out there that have the cash to do it, but what particular knowledge that does Lucid today have that would be interesting for anybody? I really wonder.
I know Sandy Monroe did some videos on the topic. So, like, it seems like they have some technology that is, you know, efficient and works well. So that's about the only reason that I could think, because I know they're involved in like racetrack activities. So maybe some tech.
Well, probably less tech than mechanical. I mean, I remember he showed this one thing that, you know, what as if I would know what it's even called, right? I have no idea. But I remember that video, and I thought, wow, yeah, that really looks well engineered and well put together. So yes, and that's great. But in battery, no. In software, no. So when it comes to the electric car, I mean, I know there is more than the battery and the software, but if you don't have neither the battery nor the software, it's quickly, the whole business model quickly falls apart. Again, I wish them the best. I really hope they survive, but this is going to be a choppy year for Lucid investors.
All right. Well, I think, you know, one thing that we're totally underestimating for Tesla is their focus on cost reduction, right, Sat? That's what you're talking about. Is, you know, Tesla has done such a good job about that. And, you know, all investors, all of us keep thinking about what Tesla's doing and their, you know, what they're announcing and the products and their visionary. But really, the thing that makes them different is their cost ability. And Elon just tweeted out just yesterday, right? He said, prototypes are easy, production is hard, and achieving positive cash flow is excruciating. So that is basically what they've always focused on. So, okay, should we just move on? Are you guys any more comments on Lucid? Okay, yeah, I mean, it really is just one of those things, isn't it? That Lucid, is just one example. And you think that Lucid should survive because they are, a niche player. They've got just a high-end car that is focused on, very niche area. But if they can't control their costs, they're going to be not long for this world, which is what Elon said. So what I'd like to do now is spend the rest of the episode here talking about the different catalysts and milestones that Tesla's got for 2023. Before we get there, though, this is just a really nice table that I put together a while back that talks about all the milestones that Tesla's ever done from 2003 to 2021. And just a little bit of the memory lane, because they were where Lucid was here in the very beginning, right? Where they started to build a very high-end car, the Roadster, and it cost them, a lot of money to make that happen. It's very, very hard, as Elon has said, to create a automobile manufacturer and to keep it afloat. And do you remember those days, those episodes when he was remember those videos where he was he was almost crying as he was trying to fix all those roadsters that was in that factory. And then the other bit that I think was pretty cool about this is that if you look at here in 2020, 2021, they announced Dojo supercomputer. They announced Tesla Bot. The FSD beta was just limited release in the public in 2021. Those were the good old days. Remember that, Xander? 2021, Tesla hits 1 trillion market cap. Kurtz, those were awesome days, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
Xander.
And I actually have I have a Tesla Hertz rental right now in New York.
You do? Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, no charger in the trunk or the frunk, so that'll be fun.
So what you do?
I got to go to the supercharger. Yeah.
So, and then 2022, as we know, was first started off very good in the first month of January, where we saw the stock rise. We had all of this optimism, and then since then, because of macro, because of the war, everything went down. So even though the company continued to hit milestones, this is the reason I'm showing this, is that if you step back and think about what Tesla's doing, they still are hitting their milestones. They launched Giga Berlin, they launched Giga Texas, they launched the Lathrop Megawatt battery plant came out. There was another additional factory in Giga Shanghai. They're hitting record revenues. The IRA came out, AI Day, Tesla Bot demo, all these things happened. And yet we as investors are kind of, we're feeling a little negative because we kind of, every time it happened, nothing happened to the stock. In fact, the stock fell drastically since then. And so in 2023, as we look at this, the biggest news we all are aware of is the IRA credit. That's going to be and is already starting to show a tremendous catalyst for us. And then we're also focused on this, the 400,000 units delivery versus production, just slightly missing it in terms of expectations. They did the price cuts, the lithium refine. Oh, I'm sorry. Why did I put January 4th here? What? This is old. This, I think it's announced, not breaks ground. That was announced. And how quickly they went from, yeah, this is announced. But this is the things that happen to now. And so what we can basically talk about now is where does we head for now? And let's talk about each of these topics. So May 16th, next week, the shareholder meeting. And then I've got Model 3 Highland in June. Why don't we talk about both of these topics first? And let's go roundtable. What do you think, Jeff and the folks here, what do you guys are looking for in terms of the shareholder meeting?
Yeah, no, I think it's good for Tesla to bring their shareholders together, kind of talk about kind of the latest state of the company and where they see it going. There's questions on kind of their strategy and what they've taken. I think we've debated the strategy on this show pretty significantly over time. We can talk about it more. But what I like and what I see kind of happening in the second half of the year is Tesla purposely introducing these models to take their cost structure down further organically, with newer models with lower unit economics that can sit at lower price points. So I think, in the shareholder meetings, they can talk about, their path to scale, both in auto and in energy. I think that would be very beneficial for the shareholders to hear and understand.
Alexandra, you're the expert here. What are you expecting?
Expert. That's a big question. So the shareholder meeting, actually the day for those that have invites is at 11 o'clock, the doors open. Until 3 o'clock, there's a factory tour. I'm very much looking forward to that. Like you all know, I have no clue what I'm going to see, but I think I'll be so overwhelmed and impressed. So I'm very much looking forward to that. From 3 to 5 is the keynote speakers and the votes. So as you all remember probably from last year, that's when the agenda items are brought forward. In the good old times, shareholders were actually sitting there and voting. Obviously, most of the votes will be in by them. Some of those votes need 66% supermajority. So not sure everything passes, but there are actually very few things to come up with. You all remember that they advanced shareholder meeting. Last year it was in August, this year it is in May. That surprised a lot of people. They announced it in the Q3 SEC filing, and it was way down under, so nobody really took good notice, which brings with it that all these activists weren't on time to ask some of those other ridiculous questions they usually can. So I expect that part to go quite seamlessly, and if certain votes don't have the 66%, well, then that's at it, right? They know before because they have all the electronic notes. I do hope J.B. Strobel is going to be there and becomes a new member of the board. You all know that Hero is retiring, so he may be there and take the mic for a little bit and explain what happened the last 3 years and how sad he is to leave the board. I do expect Robin Denholm to address initially the crowd and explain, where Tesla now is. She is not as eloquent and as charming as Elon brings the stuff over, but she actually has always very, very detailed and good information, so it's worthwhile listening to her. But I think the most interesting of all that is then the questions and answer session. So I get briefed from those that were there last year and go, oh, try to sit there and there, close to a mic. What's your question going to be? And I mean, I didn't even think of asking a question, but now that I get pushed to it, I'm thinking this through, and I would like to hear, your suggestions. Obviously, my personal most important question is: will Tesla build up in-house financing for cars? Because I do believe that would be a great strategy. Or is it going to stay at the current level, which, remember last week I talked about, is about 1.3% of sold cars over the last 15 months before they didn't do it. So that would be, what I'm most curious about. But there are much more important questions like that one. There are the questions of, like Jeff just said, what's the product strategy? Where are we going? What's the speed of implementation? All those things. So I think the Tesla community should really concentrate on bringing together these questions, and then some of the courageous ones should go up on that day and ask those questions, because I thought last year there were a couple of good questions, but also some were sort of missed opportunities. And I'm no blame to anybody. But here we have Elon's attention. He's up there. The other board members are there as well. And it's not pre-organized by say, and in this earnings call situation, we actually have the live reaction. We see them. We have video stream. And I think it would be great if we can assemble a couple of questions, and then some of the brave ones go up there and ask them.
Anybody else want to contribute?
Yeah, if you can ask those questions, great. And if they have the mic, get there early, get in there first, get to that mic and sit next to it. That's what I used to do. And that's how I was able to get an interview. And there's a lot that you can get from that too. And I think people misconstrue a shareholder as like another big event, as if it's a product release. So it'll never be a product release. But right. What people should probably look at is how the management is reacting and how they're presenting things. And then it's also exchange of ideas, really cool in that sense. I don't see that with other kind of earnings call or even shareholder meetings, because there's a long time ago they asked about obviously some of them, the environmental people came in and said, well, you're green car, then why don't you use vegan leather? And they since switched over suppliers and created that, right? So that's a good idea, we should probably do that. And eventually they did, right? So it's an exchange of ideas too. And then even like to help them also reiterate about safety and so forth when he was asked about it, that because people didn't know, they actually focus heavily on safety. That was like the number one thing on their priority when they're making the car, not to make it look good. So this shareholder Q&A is really important. That's actually the treasure where I really love to go there for that reason. And back in the day, it was a lot easier to grab one of the executives and have a side chat with them. So it was really fun.
Okay, guys, if you've got a +1, please invite Sat because he's made every single annual shareholder meeting, but maybe not this one. You got a +1, share that with him.
Let Sander speak. Sander was having a good question.
Oh no! I was just saying no. Send the invite to me. Never mind that. I take the request back.
All right, guys, you guys interrupted me talking about the Model 3 Highland or sending Xander an invite. Okay, fine. Fine. Guys, Model 3 Highland, this is a big deal, right? We've seen photos of it. Is it real? I want to hear from the panel. Is it real? I put in June, there was a rumor that came out just a couple days ago where they said a person from China said that they heard a rumor that the Model 3 production line a pilot production line is on its way and will start in June. Tell me what you think about the Model 3 Highland. Is it going to be a premium? Is it going to be low priced? Is it going to make a big difference? And how many sales do you think it's going to happen with this? Who wants to start first?
I mean, there was just a tweet out that Tesla China's, denied that rumor about the June 1st start. So, but they've denied rumors before. I mean,
Yes.
They don't want to be, want to be speculating in public about product dates. So, we'll see what happens. I think the interesting thing for me is if they're fundamentally going into this car and improving the unit economics of it, like the things that consumers can't see, and then they're actually making the body of it a little bit more sporty. If those things are true, some of the spy photos we've seen, where you can kind of get a sporty looking Tesla at a very low price point that's got all the features, has self-driving, has everything. I think that's a big winner for the company. I think that's huge. When I've driven all 4 of the models, and when I, just like Xander, when I am traveling, I do try to rent the Model 3, and it is a different experience than the other models. It's a much sportier feel and drive. So if they're able to go into that and actually improve kind of the um, improve kind of the build quality, right, with fewer parts and the castings, and actually take the cost down. And with the sportier look, I just think it's a big winner for the company. And if they can fill out more of those portfolio slots organically this way, versus just having to reduce the price point of existing product, I think it's a big win. It's it's the 2017 body style, with some minor changes, right, in the last few years. But so it's due. So, Tesla hasn't, confirmed anything, but obviously we see these spy photos. We see the car being driven around with covers on it. So hopefully something's coming very soon.
So this is like a Model 3 refresh, essentially, right? Is that for some of the audience and maybe myself as well? Uh, what's the thinking? Because it's they're trying to decrease the cost to manufacture the vehicle, but the price point is going to be whatever the Model 3 thing is, right?
Well, we'll see.
What
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, what I've heard is that it's a refresh of the Model 3. It's revised, but some people are saying it might not have the front casting. And that's why they may not have to stop a line. They can just take what they're done and slowly make changes to it, but it's going to be much reduced cost, but it's going to be refreshed, a better looking body. But I think it's going to be lower priced because some people are wondering if this is going to be the new long range, right? Because they announced the long range version, and it could be that this is it. But I think it's going to be a lower price Model 3 for a couple of reasons. One is the compact car won't come out for a year and a half, maybe 2 years from now. And so there's going to be this time frame that they're waiting for to get there. This could fill in that gap. And I think that they made a mistake with the Model 3 and the Model Y where they're priced too closely to each other. And so then everybody just bought the Model Y. And that's why it's going to become the number one sales by unit volume this year, Model Y. Model 3 is kind of sitting there, and it was supposed to be the world-taking, world-dominating kind of vehicle. And I think if they just lower the price $5,000, that's enough, and make it look sexy, it could just take off.
I agree with you. I always thought this was going to be between the 25,000 and the current Model 3 range, in the middle of that. Maybe a little bit more. I mean, how could it be, but more simple inside, a little bit less prestigious than the current Model 3, a little bit refreshed. and built in China because that's the cheapest production line, right? So I actually, I got burned last year, November, with those China rumors of closing, and then Tesla China not admitting it, and in the end it was that. So I've learned not to trust what comes out from Tesla China, just because I think they have good reasons that they want the news out later than earlier. I still believe that there's a good chance that June is going to be the month where they start doing this, and would be a good surprise. And that gave me actually FOMO, because yesterday evening I was like, I can't sit on all this cash anymore. I announced 2 weeks ago that for the earnings, I put half my 401k into cash. So this morning I bought back half of that position. So I'm still having 25% of cash, but it was the Highland and June announcement, rumor that gave me and I thought, I can't just sit there and then, because if that is true, first of all, Q2 numbers will be higher, and we expect that came together. We may talk about that soon with James's expectations, which I don't think he's right. I think he's too high. But that plus the Highland, I was going, oh, you're going to miss it. Just go back in, and there we are.
See how quickly everybody has changed. The mood has changed. You bought back in, or at least 50% of 401k that you had sold. Christian's not here, but he had announced that he's actually bought back in. So it's not zero Tesla. He's got a little bit maybe, but he's he's back into a Tesla.
The time frame makes sense, though. It's just the time frame makes sense, because Model S used to have that plastic cone in the front, and they made it into the current front design 6 years in. And now they did another refresh with the yoke and so forth. So it's around the 6-year mark. They tend to do a bigger noticeable one, even though they do upgrades like 12 average, like was said before. So, but the noticeable big changes usually around the 6-year mark.
Good point. Good point, said.
So I fully expect that Model 3 sales is going to triple. That is how bold I am.
There he goes.
5,000 reduction, and the TAM shoots up, and it fits nicely in a nice segment. So I'm excited for this. It's long waiting.
Herbert, before we go to the next point on your positive catalyst, I just wanted to go back, and you don't need to show it, 2 slides where you showed the partially or not fully fulfilled points here. 2 of them were earnings, which they are, but one was the Twitter overhang. I actually think the Twitter overhang is consumed. I don't think we still have a Twitter overhang. I mean, people will be pissed off left and right and center about political statements of Elon, but that's not what I call Twitter overhang. Twitter overhang was the moment he sold Tesla shares and put pressure on the sell side of that, and that was December. As of January, once the stock doubled again, and even if it gave back some of it now, I think that particular definition of the Twitter overhang is done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that is anymore there. And people got used to the idea that, well, there he is, talking even more political and currently being the CEO. On the flip side, I don't also think that announcing now a Twitter CEO is going to be such a big deal. I'm having this discussion with Gary all the time because Gary thinks that's going to be a big deal. I think that, the day there's, especially if it's a Twitter CEO, more of the, how would I call it, corporate executive side, meaning, somebody not so well known and not politically outspoken and all the rest, I will just be a shadow of Elon. And Elon will still do his political tweets, and I will keep on. So I would be you. I think you can put that in green.
Okay. And I was going to ask you, Alexandra, what's the chance that at the shareholder meeting that they will offer and will announce a compensation package for Elon?
Oh, impossible. No. There is not going to be.
Impossible?
It would have been impossible, yes. The shareholder meetings have a very, very formatted way of being. You need to have a proxy statement. That's why I was, so much into that 130-page proxy when it came out. Remember, I was making all this fuss about it, and people think I'm crazy. So it's either in the proxy, and that's what people vote for, or it's not going to happen. That doesn't mean that there may be not questions on it, but the new stock compensation package for Elon will have to be voted by the shareholders for this year. That's it. Not possible anymore. So it will be next year. Okay. They did put some language in there that they want to revise top executive compensation only on a 3-year span. That got quite a lot of heat from the activist groups and some journalists and all that, who would like to see that being revised on an annual basis and publicized on an annual basis. Tesla is very, very wise to do it on a 3-year basis. Not everybody needs to know how many shares there are out there. When we saw them this year, I mean, let's face it, all of us were like, wow, Zach, Drew, you're going to get rich here. And I love it. I want these executives to be really well compensated for the work they're doing, right? I want them to be motivated to stay. And I think Elon learned that lesson. Sut knows that much more. In the early days when he lost key executives, overpay, overshares, whatever. And I think he learned that and now wants the team to remain as focused and as motivated as possible. So this year, compensation is no subject. May come next year, we'll see. There's lots of things that can happen up to next year, but this year, no.
So
Thank you for that.
the kind of meeting that has those long proposals that put us to sleep last year, is this one going to be shorter?
No. So no children work in wherever in Africa or whatever. But that was that clever thing. Remember, they last year was August. If they would have done it this year in August again, the shareholder meetings, they would have announced it in the spring, right? They pulled it forward quite secretly. Nobody, no tweet about it, no nothing, to May. So 3 months earlier. And the announcement was just made in SEC filing. Page 57 is, I mean, if you read SEC filings, you're lucky if you get beyond page 10. And so that's where it was announced. And there it also gave that any agenda items that people want to bring up have to be brought forward by December 20th. But most people had ignored that. So by December 20th, nobody thought about it yet, except for a lady in Reykjavik. I talked about her. She's a private investor, and she wants them to publish a key man report, which is ridiculous. There won't be a key man report. So that's the only outside item that's voted on. And then somebody tried to put an item on, maybe finally beyond, which is another stupid little thing, but that's it. So we won't have this long chapter of 10 votes and everybody intervening, explaining why they want this. No, this time they're maximum 2.
Sweet.
Okay, let's get back to the milestones. Thank you for that, Alexandra. So we got the shareholder meeting. We talked about the Model 3 Highland. Now, if macro stays where it is at, of course, I think that these catalysts might actually start impacting the stock. Normally, I would have told you that AI Day 3, which is what these next 3 are, would have done nothing. And that's what I said last time. Remember, Alexandra? AI Day 2 wasn't going to do anything. But AI Day 3, I think, could be different. And the reason I'm saying that is because I believe, and Randy Kirk and I talked about this, that they might show the Tesla bot, which they definitely will. But when they do, it's probably going to be in production. So there's going to be a version of the Tesla bot. It's relatively easy for Tesla to create this bot. But if they have a very specific use case in the factory with a very specific, simple use case, they could show that it's working in production. So that's the Tesla bot in production. And then, of course, the Dojo, he brought it up at the last earnings call. And it could be possibly something in full production. He sort of hinted that if this is something that they start selling as a service, it could be real business for Tesla. What did you guys think about this?
I think there's zero chance the bot is in production in September. From a timeline perspective, if they were ordering production samples, like a decent, in the thousands, they'd have to be releasing tooling, pretty soon. From a timeline perspective, and then they'd have all the long lead parts they'd be ordering. I would think you would see more demos of the bot in real life doing things. I'd also think you may hear something like the design is complete. Sometimes Tesla talks about that. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes design means industrial design. Sometimes design means actual databases, CAD databases. Depends. They've kind of softly announced where CyberTruck has been, and we kind of knew it was closer to, being ready for production based on how they commented on the design. I just haven't heard that same commentary on the bot. At the same time, they're making rapid progress. I think they're doing good things, but I also think that would just be a highly accelerated timeline. Now, what they could do is they could build 100 of them or 200 of them.
Yeah,
That's a way to kind of stair step this into production. But to say it's like when you go into production, you really want to start and you just want to keep scaling and growing. You really don't want to take every line down at every supplier and kind of readjust. So I think it's like lower likelihood, but maybe smaller volumes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't expect any of those three to happen. I honestly believe the next big one is going to be the CyberTruck release last month, so September of 2023. So in 4 months now, it's very quick to come. I don't expect any news on AI Day because recruitment seemed to have gone very well after the second one. That was the main reason. And I also believe probably Elon wants to keep his cards a bit closer on AI these days, given all the other movements in the AI sphere. I don't think he wants to show his bench at the moment, nor say where they are. And somehow it's a distraction from the cars. And I think in the next couple of quarters, the cars really should be the main subject, not only from Elon, but from Tesla itself. So I'd rather not have an AI Day 3, not progress on the bots. I'm sure they're making progress every day, and not talk about Dojo, but wait for those subjects to become, mature enough to really come out with them at a moment where launch is nearly imminent.
Brilliant, Alexandra. Nice. Okay, maybe you've changed my mind a little bit. Maybe not. We'll have to sit and think about it.
Hey,
Let's,
Herbert,
last
couple,
few minutes. Hmm.
just a couple of things. I think first off, I think we don't talk enough. This is a really good list of milestones, and you go all the way back to the founding of the company. And I think it's useful.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have this posted in your subscriber content or where it is, but it'd be good for people to be able to have and grab. A couple other ones I think that are kind of unit economic bottlenecks for the company right now are getting Austin and Berlin to full capacity. And we just got an updated milestone for Austin, which is good. And then the bigger one I think that's behind that is the 4680 progress. And when those three areas are running at they're at peak rate, the kind of the industry, what you want to do is something that's measured is called time to peak volume. And when those things actually get to their peak run rate of where they've capacitized them to, the cost structure for Tesla will come down significantly. Now it's not going to all happen in like one quarter. It's going to happen as a gradient as we approach, but those are really important milestones from where those things are today. I believe the 4680 is a drag on unit economics, and I believe anything built in Austin and Berlin has a small drag on unit economics. And when those come to capacity, I think Tesla's in a really good position. Plus, the more 4680s they build, the more IRA credits that they're going to get. And they're going to be in the best position, I think, of any vendor in the US to take advantage of that.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Yep, all of these milestone lists are in my Twitter account at Herbert Ong, and I also share it. And I'm going to be updating this and sharing it shortly. So we talked about, the things that have happened before the first half of the year. Let's talk about the second half of the year. And this is what you guys have already started talking about: the Cybertruck launch, 4680 in high volume production, the Megapack factories in Lathrop, maybe a new Megapack factory announced. I think I give this a high likelihood. Some point before the end of this year, a new Gigafactory announced. We've been hearing a lot of rumors there. And so, what do you guys think in the second half of this year? So, you, Jeff, had just said it's about the scaling of the factories. It's about 4680. Just those alone will be enough to be massive catalyst. What about the other
Cybertruck, yeah.
people? And yeah, of course, Cybertruck. That's you, Jeff. You've been talking about this. I've been telling everybody. You've been saying Cybertruck is a recession buster. It better be, because we're supposed to be in a recession right now, Jeff. So
100%.
can it bust it, please?
For Tesla, it will.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as Tesla's able to get that into scale, there won't be any nobody you won't see an inventory chart on Cybertruck for 3 years because it'll be zero.
Love it. Okay, Xander, you haven't spoken for a bit here. Tell us what you're thinking about the second half of this year in 2023.
I'm excited about the Cybertruck, coming out. I'm hoping that they have the battery resources to scale rapidly. There's a lot of people waiting. I think it's gonna transform what it looks like out there. So that's exciting. It's going to bring a lot of attention to the company. I'd love to see maybe another AI day, or maybe an individual bot day. So to get an update and get an understanding of the progress. Um, I think with FSD getting as good as it's gotten with the V11, like it seems like those two items can um, be launched at the same time, where you can see the progress of or the possibility of a robot doing things, like autonomously out there, not just in a factory. But so I know that's too far into the future, and obviously not so. Um, Number it won't drive the numbers initially, but I think for innovation and the excitement around the company, I think it can do a lot. But back to your question, I think the second half is just going to be scale uh, the, the Model Ys to become the number one selling car. But
Mhm.
I'd really love to get some semi um, action. I know that's for me personally, since I have one on reservation. But like I've been telling people, 3 to 5 years is our expectation. Um, but is that is that reasonable, or is that or you think it'll take longer or shorter? Jeff, what about you?
You mean 3 to 5 years for mass production, or
Yeah, for me to get, I'm like reservation number 15,000. So like, how long is that going to take?
No, no updates.
No updates.
yeah,
No, no
no
updates.
updates? Yeah, it may take a couple. I mean, it may take a couple. I mean, they've got to get the factory built. I mean, what they have in Nevada was for more controlled and kind of more of a smaller sample line. So I think you've got to keep your eye on when the production capacity is installed for that. And I think it'll be in. I think it'll ramp fairly quickly. I mean, if you're number 15,000, but I don't know about 5 years. If it's
Yeah.
5 years, there's a problem. If it's 3 years, it's pretty
It
reasonable.
depends on the model, right? I mean, they probably will start with the expensive models first. You all follow Tesla much longer than me, so you probably know how they roll it out. So it depends on what you order, Xander. Did you order a high-end model? Is it that still? I mean, they
It's
change
just like,
those configuration.
yeah, it's just like the Cybertruck, the same kind of reservation process. You're just getting in line, and then you'll actually get to order it and design. So, but
Should
yeah,
have
we want
ramped faster than Lucid.
All right, Zat, tell us what you thought about the second half this year.
Well, just to uh, give some feedback on that, I think like 2 to 3 years is a good time frame, because typically most of the ramp up, even if it's slow, was around that time when they hit volume production. And if you're 15,000, they're projected to do 50K a year. Whenever they hit that year, and would definitely be the year you probably get it, at least for current reservation holders. Uh, but yeah, I think the Cybertruck is going to be the huge one, because for so long people have been say, "Oh, it's been delayed. It's not going to be made." So when that comes, I think that would be the bigger catalyst of to reaffirm people. Also, the people who recently joined on Tesla, like the list in the last couple of years, they haven't seen what's happened in the prior years, and the issues that they had before is not there with Cybertruck, and they learn each with each platform and each vehicle they've made, they've learned significant. So be simple. Now they got rid of paint, right? So they're simplifying it in every process. Every time they go to the next platform, they're going to simplify. Next platform they would announce is going to be unboxing, manufacturing, and production. So we'll see what that entails, right? So they've already gone to different lengths of improving something with each vehicle, and also came with the Model Y. Like when that came out, they brought that out and they put it into the Model 3 as well now. So they're always improving something significant each product in each line that they come into, and it's even on the factory manufacturing side. It's not just the product side, and that's why they're focused. I think people forget like the significance of the visionary is that Elon picks which one. So he's like, let's do this Cybertruck. We're going to do it completely different. Only him would be able to do it. So I see that fruition coming to light, and they'll highlight everything. We'll get to see all the details, and then we'll see where they're going because you see the hyper to streamline everything and keep it simple.
What I've noticed is that if you look at the history of Tesla, you go back from 2003 to 2021, and then if I look at the list of all of 2022, it's all as we understand, it's all about cars. But now, if you look at the list, 2023, and if you just have to stop and think about this, right? So we've got a bunch of things about cars. Then you got your lithium refinery, right? You have your Giga Nevada mega packs. You got your Tesla bot. You have Dojo. You know, Tesla Energy, Tesla Semi. It's just it's crazy to realize that the conversations that everybody's having about Tesla has changed. And I've been saying this, that I was very happy that in the last earnings call, the analysts themselves brought up the word Tesla Energy themselves 4 times. So
Yeah.
even they are starting to realize this. And so I was able to take Nitzau's table, and with his permission, I kind of rearranged it so it's a little bit easier for us to see. But Tesla's not another car company, is it? And here's all the businesses that Tesla's doing. And really, transportation and cars and semis is just one part, one little bit here. But the rest of it, right? We're talking energy, which is even a potentially equal or bigger. Then now we're doing refinery and mining of batteries and resources. And of course, we are at the end of the day, they're a software company. And so we're going to start hearing much more about the App Store and the infotainment entertainment system. FSD is going to start making a dent in terms of the revenue. Dojo, if that becomes its own business, he's already talked about that could be hundreds of billions of dollars of revenue, and of course the automation of the robots and so forth. So one of the questions I wanted to ask the group here is one catalyst or type of catalyst that I kind of put in there and then I pulled off, and I don't know if I should put back in, but I really feel strongly should be in there, is this notion that sometime this year some sort of third party vendor is going to partner in a big way with Tesla. So similar to how we had Hertz talking about this big deal with Tesla, and it made the news. It was pretty, earth moving in terms of both Tesla and the news. Something's going to happen this year, whether it's a supercharger partnership or what's the likelihood that an OEM, a legacy car manufacturer, is going to partner with Tesla and say, "Hey, I want to do skateboards. I want to do FSD. I want to do your software infotainment system. Something is going to be licensed." What do you guys think? Is that even a possibility, or am I dreaming that it's going to happen this year?
I think it could be announced, but in terms of it's all coming down to supply, and you have to think about who would they partner with, right? Because all of these other OEMs have kind of announced their own strategy. It's almost like, hey, we think we have something better. You just got to wait a couple of years to see it. So we'll see. I think I think you'd have to see some significant milestones also achieved. Tesla. If we're talking about full self driving, I think it could happen. This is something I kind of call an option value. You take the base case of them just building and shipping cars and just growing that business immensely, and then building and shipping energy and growing that immensely. The first level of option value is them, getting FSD going and getting it scaled in their own portfolio. And then really quickly, I think others are going to wake up and see like, wow, this is the smallest, this is the most refined unit economics to enable this great value proposition for consumers. Everything else is many times more, when you look at the vehicle level to enable something like this, and it's not even performing or it's not even scalable. So I think Tesla, to your point, I think they have many things that others would like to license and could and would be much more scalable. But I think Tesla wants to get there as soon as they can. And I also think Tesla wants to make sure that they have assured supply, for all their vehicles, based on what they're licensing out. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one, Jeff. And I think it's actually a mixture of two things. First, the supply, you're completely right on that one. and then the motivation of the demand. Do I think that the European car makers, the US car makers, the Japanese car makers should do that? Oh, for sure. I mean, they should do that. Like they should have done it 6 months ago, if not longer. Do I think they can justify to themselves to now do it? They're probably not yet in dire enough a situation to reach out. And they probably think they'll find cheaper solutions with some Chinese car makers or other partnerships. So I expect rather consolidation to happen in the OEM world, and these people, it always takes months and short years for these to happen. More concentrated on their traditional survival techniques. The old. I mean, are two blind people suddenly seeing? Probably not, but they believe for a while that the partnership is going to help them. I'll never forget the merger between Daimler and Chrysler. That was the opener on it shouldn't have car industry. So anyway, long story short, do I believe direct car competitors to reach out and license? No. Do I believe that peripheric Hertz's or other fleets? I think there are actually going to be many newer fleets that will have special edition cars, cheaper cars, or something else that will strive. Yes, I expect that to start building as soon as supply is there for them to be able to reach out. Now, I have no means of knowing whether it's in 3 months or in 12 months, but I do believe that is a sector where Tesla will be able to grow a lot.
What do you think, Sat?
Historically, Tesla has done partnerships with other OEMs. They did with Toyota, with the Mercedes. Daimler helped actually rescue them with the $50 million infusion of the funds in 2008. But it's also mutual. It's always some kind of mutual trade that they have. They use supplies that the suppliers of Mercedes. The stock of Model S used to be the same as the one in Mercedes. So they also did the EU RAV EV. I guess it was ultimately a compliance car for Toyota, but it was also learning about the EV platform and so forth. And they had that contract, and then they, stopped the EVs for that matter for the Toyota. So kind of their loss. But now, you hear partnership with BYD for the supply of batteries. So the cross breeding of different companies, even though they seemingly could be adversarial or a rival, we're not in a business where it's really simplistic anymore. We're very complex in the industries that we have. Like Netflix is technically competitor to Amazon Prime Video, but Netflix uses the AWS service, right, which is Amazon, right? So they overlap in every other parts of what you have in the industry and in which section they actually help with the partnership. So I don't think they can benefit as much from the OEMs now that they've learned how to make the EVs better than EVs and cars mostly on par with or better than the other OEMs. So there's not going to be a benefit in the OEM's sense, but it has to be something that they need help with, which is the batteries. So BYD is actually a battery cell phone maker first, and they've slowly gone into the vehicle segment. So they have a different line that was the main business. They're just expanding the business of electric cars. So it's not nothing new that BYD is in the car space, but their bread and butter is this cell manufacturing. So that doesn't surprise me now they're supplying it, because Tesla needs, it doesn't matter if you're right or not, like you need all the batteries in the world. It's not enough. The next wave that we're going into, it's not enough batteries. So you're going to need everyone to be on board, which is the whole point of Investor Day, to get everyone on board to take part of that whole sustainable part, advancement of sustainable energy and transport to the next level. So I think any partnership is going to be in relation to that mission, but I don't think it's going to be the legacy OEMs, unless the legacy OEMs are providing something that they don't have at this moment.
I think, Xander.
Like, I guess you're talking about powered by Intel. I can see that happening with maybe the software aside and integration into the supercharger network. But like, what's the advantage that like these guys can figure out how to make a good motor, right? And Tesla's like perhaps the management of the temperatures in the battery packs, if that is an advantage. And I think maybe Jeff knows more about this than I do. I think that those things have a potential, but this year I don't. I don't think. I think there's a lot of pride when it comes to other manufacturers. We hear about that from some of the people that work. I know a guy at Porsche, and you know. So maybe you can expand on it, Herbert. What do you think?
Sure.
Then is there a
Yeah.
specific?
Yeah. Well, let me say it. So first of all, I think that the legacy manufacturers are desperate. I think it's very clear now that you're seeing the results of where they're headed. It's very clear this year. They're struggling. We're seeing companies fall. We're seeing companies realize that they're about to fall unless they make a decision and help. I think that when you think of Tesla, they've always said that their mission is accelerate sustainable energy. They've always said that factory is our product. Now that they've got the factories moving, I can see a OEM investing and having them, Tesla build the factory on their behalf. And Tesla saying, sure, I would like to do that because I want to help you. I don't want to kill you. We need as many of them as possible. And so at the end of the day, I think if Tesla could actually not only create their own cars and sell it, but actually be the underlying technology that they're hoping other companies will sell, it kind of makes sense to me. But like you say, it doesn't have to be the car parts too. It can just be the software, the entertainment system, the FSD. It can be the superchargers. I just want a supercharger. I just want McDonald's to come out and say, every single McDonald's will now have a supercharger network with it. Why can't they just do that? It's going to happen. It will happen. Mark my words, it will happen. Something like that will happen. So that's what I'm saying is something like that. The other point I want to make is earlier Jeff had said something about, which we hear a lot of people say, listen, Tesla is an auto company, just auto alone, they're going to succeed. There's so much potential for energy and robots and all these things, but we look at it as an options play. When it happens, oh my God, the stock will rise. But right now, we don't need to look at that. I'm saying that, yes, that is true, but look at where we're at. In 2023, these things are no longer options play. They're in play. They're happening. Their revenue's showing up now. As we all said here, energy is a real business now. And it's hockey sticking up so that by the end of this year, we're going to see $2 billion in profit. We're going to start seeing bots being moved and being sold. We're going to start seeing lithium refinery is broken ground. In 2 years, it'll be available. So these things are no longer options play. Or at some point, maybe in 6 months from now, a year from now, they're real businesses. Maybe Dojo will be announced as a real business at some point. So you know what I mean. So these things it's fast becoming the business that Tesla is going to show is real business. And I'm saying to you, in 2023, you're starting to see the narrative change. We're starting to hear more and more conversations about things other than automobiles.
So are you saying that when you say license, you're not talking about license a part of the business. You're saying that actually, hey, we want to partner with you, design a factory the way that you guys design it, build not Teslas, but build your product with the components of Teslas, but then you put your cab on top. Is that where you're going with it?
That's one example, right? That's one example. They could license their ability to create a factory for them. They could license just the skateboard, like they used to with the Mercedes, the transmission. They could just do superchargers, like they opened it up to everybody. But a partnership with a vendor, the software, the autopilot is an example of one. But I think that car companies will say, "Hey, I'll buy your autopilot for you and distribute it within our brand."
Gotcha. Thank you. Last point that you were saying about Tesla being a car company, I think this like we're talking about Investor Day. This is the kind of company that you look at what they're doing and what they're going to be doing, right? So your milestone list is great for an investor to contemplate buying some stock and looking into the future. Like the conversations we were having over the last few weeks is just it's so localized and it's temporary. So if you're looking for a big payday short term, that's difficult. And difficult to predict, but long term, the company is just growing and evolving. So to me, it's easy. It's an easy investment into a company that I believe in. So I think like these narratives about car company, that's dead. That's the it's just like the same narrative of the competition is coming.
All right. Well, let's. Who thinks that if the macro stays same, when will Tesla be re-rated as not just a car company, an energy company? We know that that might happen by the end of this year. What's the folks here? Are you guys optimistic?
Sorry, I did have a question about Alexander. When do you think they're going to get upgraded in their investment grade?
They
Like,
are.
how much longer do they have
They
to?
have been upgraded. They have been upgraded in October by S&P. So we may see a further upgrade. So the investment grade, lowest investment grade, but they are investment grade by S&P since October, and they are investment grade by Moody's since March the 20th. So those annual birthdays, so in October this year and March next year, may and should bring further upgrades, because we know very well that financially Tesla is currently AAA, much better than other AAAs, and even if you give them a little knockdown for certain volatility, it's at least AA. And they actually admitted, I published the Moody's report that they put out with their March rating upgrade, and clearly they're just bringing stupid fluff reasons for not giving them the rating they deserve. But you have to understand, Tesla is not paying them, so they're obviously not giving any favor. This is a stupid game. They are investment grade, so they could cheaply refinance. They are AAA worthy on the credit default swap market, so they have all the means to do financial arbitraging if they want to, as of now. So I don't think that's a further catalyst, because in the reality, nobody looks at S&P and Moody's once they are investment grade. So we have now the institutions that have no excuse anymore, or no reason not to invest anymore if they have the willingness to do so.
Okay. Any final words from anybody?
Well, I wanted to get back to your question. When will Tesla not be considered a car company anymore? More important for me is, when will it not be considered a discretionary consumer goods company anymore? Because the traditional car makers, GM and Ford, are in that segment that is consumer discretionary goods, which is a crap place to be, right? I mean, I'm talking about index funds. I'm talking about capital allocators that go by these old measures, right? I mean, I could talk for hours about how crap this whole way of setting it up is, but it is what it is. But by not being considered a car company anymore, Tesla would move out of it. So where would it move? Raw materials, energy, or tech? And what I really would like is them to move into the tech sectors, because then we're talking Apple, Microsoft, and all biggies. And it will be just a completely different game for anybody that does capital allocation with those models. Again, I don't like those models, but the thing is, when you're stuck in consumer discretionary goods, you don't get the big influx of fresh money. There are much more tech growth investors than there are consumer discretionary goods, and on top of it, within this, those people that invest in consumer discretionary goods, well, they want the Walmarts of this world. They want the GMs. When they see Tesla in there, they have a heart attack, right? So you're just not in the right sample of comparables, just because it is still labeled a car company, and it should move all the way there. And so what will happen is, once income is not 90% car and 10% others, but it will be 75-25, or it will be very clear that the increase, the growth rate on the SaaS part, or on the energy part, is, the growth rate of those elements is much bigger than on the cars. We may move out of that cluster and move to better cluster.
Nice.
Hey, Herbert, on your, I like what Alexander was saying, because that's just a kind of a different way to think about how the stock is and the name is positioned for investors and institutions. The way I would actually, I would come at it is also just to add to that is, Tesla had to stop getting their earnings estimates reduced. And that's literally been happening every month for the last several months, as they've gone through what they're doing on pricing, There's been concerns about inventory or other things, and basically there's been this cycle of EPS reductions. And I believe hopefully that cycle is troughed. And if you've watched this show and been watching the 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 guests that you have on your channel, we've talked about the fact that these COGS reductions are going to happen in the second half, and they really are accelerating. They're happening. They're going to happen both organically, and they're going to happen through the introduction of new models. And we've been watching some of these inventory charts and looking at the trends over the last couple of weeks. And I think analysts tend to overshoot in both directions, both where they put EPS a year or so ago, and then and then they play catch up. So this time I believe they've overshot in terms of how low EPS is going to be this year, but we'll see how it plays out. Obviously, there's macroeconomic conditions that occur this year, but I also believe they've overshot. I believe this is the bottoming process in terms of Tesla finding, pricing, MSRP, and then availability of product and matching it to consumers. So now you have these upcoming catalysts. If there is a new, lower end Model 3 that's more sporty, if there is the Cybertruck, I don't think people had kind of both of those things happening together, in their catalysts. And that Model 3 is something they should be able to ramp up pretty quickly. So the second half of this year could be very exciting. The IRA, what the IRA is, what we thought it was last year versus what it really is, it's a little bit difficult, right? You, as a consumer, you've got to go through these qualification steps, and then you would see the money, you'd see the returns a year later. If you buy a Tesla today, you're not going to see it on your tax returns for a year later. As you get closer to the end of the year, that time is going to be compressed from the time you buy the car till it actually starts helping your payments. It would be maybe a few months from now. So I think that's going to help. And then next year, it's going to be point of sale. So analysts and the markets have to look ahead. They can't be just minute by minute. So we're getting into the middle part of this year. If you look ahead to 2024, the catalysts are just they're expanding for the company. So I think this is a really interesting point in time, this early part of summer for Tesla. I'm very interested to see what they say at the shareholders meeting, and I'm very interested to see, as these product announcements coalesce and come to fruition. I'm very bullish in terms of the second half. And again, I think the markets will look past any momentary point in time, like what's the Model X or S inventory. The markets are going to look past stupidity like that, and they're going to look at what's happening with the Model Y. It's going to 1.3 million units. We're relaunching the 3. We're going to enter the truck segment, and FSD is now coming to a point where it may be much more mature than the prior release, and then continue to improve throughout the end of the year. So the catalysts to me seem very strong to be re-rated at some point in the second half of this year.
Yeah, I really like that tweet from Elon where he said when the FSD is ready, he'll give a month free to try it. I think that is indicator that we're not that far off. So no way, because that it feels we've come to the level where everyday folks like me will be comfortable with it and won't feel like a beta tester anymore, which freaks me out. So I really like that one. And to your point, you're completely right, Jeff. In your list, sorry to say that, but in your list are still missing two things, which is the Q3 and the Q4 earnings. Right? I didn't see them, and I do believe that everybody has taken it down much too far, being depressed by this Q1 and supply and the demand, and I don't know what headaches everybody had. And we will actually have good surprises on the upside. I do believe the economy can actually improve if the Fed suddenly, gets their act together. But energy, in my view, obviously financing, Cybertruck, the Y sales, the 3 refresh are all elements that nobody has put into those figures. Everybody's just extrapolating those figures for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 quarters, thinking nothing new is going to happen. Well, guess what? Things are going to happen.
I'm loving this. Thank you guys so much. Look what's happening. Look what's happening. We're getting a little bit more bullish again, isn't it? It's actually going to be fun and really rewarding that we actually, Tesla went through a massive down. We went to the lowest of the lows, but now we're starting to hear some, blue skies coming here. And I'm so glad that Sat joined and Xander joined. Sat is a bull like me, and he stuck through it like I did, and so did Jeff. Thick and thin from the beginning. Xander's always been a bull. He famously has sold his house, and he's like an all-in of all of us. And then we're hearing good things from both you and Jeff, and then Christian bought back in again. So I think we're going to turn him again at some point. If the macro changes, just watch. He's going to be so excited again. But very happy. Thank you guys so much. And next week, so we are moving this show to Wednesdays at noon. But next week, because it's going to be the shareholders meeting, not really sure what's going to happen. I think at this point, we're still going to plan to do the show at Wednesday at noon. Other than that, we're going to keep the schedule ongoing. So thank you, everybody. Join us again next time, and we'll have Sat back in as a guest bull again next time. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Sat. Thanks, everybody.